Did you know that atheism relies on a handful of intellectually bankrupt slogans that its adherents just regurgitate with little to no critical thought about? The most prominent example of this is the slogan, God of the Gaps. Atheists run to this slogan because they read it on a Reddit post somewhere, and then they think that it's a get-out-of-jail-free card for any type of argument that a theist might use. So let's briefly talk about why this is a dumb slogan. In our everyday lives, we often use what is called abductive reasoning, or reasoning in which we make inferences to the best explanation. This is used in history, forensics, philosophy, science, and just our everyday lives. And the idea is that we take a set of data and we try to find out what is the best explanation for that set of data. And explanations can be judged on factors like explanatory scope, explanatory power, parsimony, ad hocness, implausibility, coherence with other beliefs, and things like that. For example, suppose that you are a detective and you walk into a crime scene, and on the floor is a dead woman with a knife in her back. The windows show signs of being broken into from the outside. There are boot prints in the mud in front of the window. There is mud on the floor of the house, and there are signs of a struggle. And additionally, the neighbor tells you that they heard a woman screaming loudly, telling somebody to get out of their house. You would likely infer that the woman was, murdered, because that's the best explanation for all the data. Now imagine that as you're telling your superior that you think it was a murder, a young, cocky detective comes up and says, "Oh, there you go again with your murderer of the gaps. You can't think of a way that all of this could have happened naturally, so you're just plugging in gaps in your knowledge with some unknown murderer." This would be immensely stupid, and you would likely not give them the time of day. But suppose you ask that young, cocky detective what their proposed explanation is, and they just shrug their shoulders, and they say, "I don't know, but I'm not going to conclude that a murderer did it just because I can't think of anything else." This is even dumber. I mean, it would be one thing if he actually had a competing explanation to offer, but he doesn't even have that. You are concluding that there was a murderer based off of what you know about the world and your knowledge of how improbable it is for all that data to line up in the absence of a murderer. And you are 100% justified in believing that it was a murder based on the explanatory power that that explanation offers. And in our everyday life, we all recognize that this reasoning is completely reasonable and valid, and nobody would say the stupid thing that the cocky young detective did. Yet apparently when we get to God, all of a sudden, it is completely fine to just slap a silly label on our inferences and call it a day. If a theist looks at the order in the universe and how the universe is fine-tuned for life and the complexity in the most basic living cell and the information that is conveyed in DNA, and they see that all of human history is filled with overwhelming testimony about there being a creator of this world, we are completely justified in inferring God's existence as an inference to the best explanation. And if you think that God isn't the best explanation, that's great. Put forth an actual argument for why God is not the best explanation. Merely labeling our inference as God of the gaps is no such argument.